Yo, what up, street gods? There, Kim. All right, so the thought. The thought is the notion of tolerance versus acceptance. So it's actually really interesting. When I was a kid, it was all about tolerance, right? So, tolerance, whatever, and diversity and stuff like that. And now the nomenclature is changing to talk about more acceptance. Now, what's the difference and what are just like my philosophical thoughts? Let me explain and share. So to tolerate is, kind of, if you think about like mechanics or physics, is to bear the load of something and not have it break. So the tolerance of a certain metal is certain psi whatevers. And typically in terms of social physics or social relationships or whatever, to tolerate someone's behavior, it's like, I don't like it, but I'll let you kind of do it and get away with it. So I actually think that tolerance is actually, in terms of a moral or ethical system, far better than acceptance, because acceptance to accept something means to take it in. So when it comes to religion, to accept other religions is tricky because that actually means to obey and follow someone else's religion. And tolerate's also a trickier word too, because it kind of is like inherent that like you might not really like it. So, let's say we want to be tolerant towards Islam or Judaism or whatever it may be. It kind of insinuates you don't really believe in or like it, but I mean, maybe that might be a better way to approach just everything in the world right now, because even when we think about like kind of racial or morphological or physiological differences between humans, right? So you got the Caucasians, we got African Americans, we got East Asians, South Asians, Latinos, Afro-Caribbean peoples, whatever. And the problem is we are no longer tolerant to one another. We don't tolerate each other's beliefs, we don't tolerate each other's activities and stuff like that. And the problem is, like, everyone wants to be a mini tyrant. It's like, oh, you should do as I do because I'm the apex of all knowledge and wisdom, and anyone who does contrary to what I believe in should be punished or reprimanded. Now this is kind of silly because, like, I don't know what your gender or your sexual orientation is, whatever. Like, let's say, you want to be bisexual, homosexual, heterosexual, metrosexual, pansexual, whatever. I'm like, dude, you do you. Like that's cool. Like, you let me do me and I let me do you. Or no, I'm kind of getting that mixed up. So you leave me alone, you let me do what I want to do in private, and I leave you alone and I'll let you do what you want in private. And so the thing that's so bizarre to me is, like, for example, let's say you're kind of you're a heterosexual male, right? And there are other people who are homosexual males. Why do you care what people do in private? Like, why do you care about other people's sexual preferences? It's like, don't you got better things to kind of like kill your time over? And so I think that's a sign of a very intolerant society. Or another example, let's say I eat meat, let's say you don't. I should not force you to eat meat, nor should you force me to not eat meat. And this is where I think, like, I certainly cannot say all, but there's some vegans that I've met who desire that everybody should become vegan. And that's kind of an intolerant behavior, because I don't think everyone should be a carnivore. I don't think everyone should be an omnivore. I'm just like, this is how I eat. You should eat the way you eat, but everyone wants to make their own personal truth kind of a universal truth, which I think is very dangerous. And so when it comes to morality and ethics, to think about tolerance is a little bit more robust of a concept than acceptance, because let's say, so for example, let's say gun rights in America, right? So for the most part, I'm like anti, having a gun in America. But at the same time, if other people want to have a gun, I'm like, I want to respect that, I want to tolerate that, because who knows, maybe one day there is a militia uprising and you might want to have a gun. Or let's say, you live in a farm and you're really poor and you need to hunt animals in order to augment your food supply. I have no idea. And so, and there's also a reason why, you know, South Korean and also Israelis are forced to do mandatory military service, because I mean right now the world's a relatively peaceful place, but you don't know what things are gonna be in the future. So like if other people are gonna want to have a gun or concealed carry, I'm like, yo, like I'll tolerate that, you do you, right? Just whatever. Like I wouldn't personally do it for myself, but I think I need to be tolerant towards other people's beliefs. Or for example, like for the most part, I consider myself like left-leaning, kind of liberal. This is kind of just how I grew up. But you know, still, like if people want to vote for Trump or they're right-wing or whatever, I want to be tolerant towards that too. I'm like, yo, like that's what you believe in. And now what I try to do is I try not to convince people that they're wrong, because like I don't think anyone's ultimately right or wrong. It's just kind of all opinion. And you know, unless we're talking about like mathematics and physics, all moral and ethical philosophical ends and aims, there is no facts. It's all just opinions. It's subjective. It's what you believe in. And therefore, you know, I want to be tolerant towards conservatives and right-wing people, but also want conservatives and right-wing people to be tolerant of me and kind of my leftist views. But also, funny enough, a lot of my left-leaning friends are not tolerant of my more aberrant things, because like there's a lot of things that, you know, I believe in that don't go according to the normal liberal thing. So you know, I didn't vote for Trump, I voted for Bernie and the Hillary, and I'm pretty much anti-Trump. But at the same time, like I don't think his, you know, and I think there's actually a lot of good that Trump has done. Like for example, I don't know, he might have prevented World War III with North Korea and stuff like that. And actually there's a lot of his policies that I do agree with. So for example, being more tough on China, I mean, purely from an economic perspective, might be better for America to bring home more local manufacturing. And also, there's lots of pitfalls to globalism and too much supply chain issues. But at the same time, obviously, like I would prefer open borders. So I would like all immigrants to be able to come to America, just like America was able to let in my South Korean parent immigrants, right? So the problem is everyone's trying to put you inside a box. Most people, I don't know, like the more and more I think about it, most people are actually not very intelligent. Even the intelligentsia, or the Nassim Taleb calls them the IYIs, the intellectual yet idiots. You know, all these like pseudo woke people, these academics at Harvard and stuff like that, who tell us what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat, how we should think, how we should not think. And so, I don't know, I think we need a more tolerant society. And to be accepting of everything is to believe in nothing. Because like if we accepted all beliefs in the world as equally true for ourselves, certainly that would devalue what we find personally valuable in our lives. And I think more people need to be tolerant that there's no such thing as ultimate truth. They're just like personal truths. And so, and this is why I love America, in the sense that we're probably the most tolerant society in the world in terms of freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom of behavior. I mean, certainly America's not perfect, but I think based on my travels and interactions and understandings, America's probably the least bad place to live if you want to be an entrepreneur or be a free spirit, whatever. But every upside has its downside, so there's a heavy price to pay for freedom. And it is kind of corny, but it's true that freedom ain't free.